deadline, Franco will have to depart the venue immediately after each speech. And Franco and his family sincerely appreciate you attending this speech and your support for this event. His team will need to take a photo of the audience for evidence at the end of the speech, and we ask that you please remain where you are after the speech. Each of the speeches are different from one another, but share one overall theme, facing our fears and challenges. Finally, Franco is here to present his 13th speech of 23 entitled, The Value of Fear. Please join us in welcoming Franco Skika.
All right, go. Thank you very much, Grace. Thanks to the intrepid Toastmasters of Whitby and everyone in the public, friends and family who have joined us here at speech number 13, Value of Fear. It's just a coincidence, 13, Value of Fear. It just dawned on me. But it really is fearful. And 13 is not getting any easier, to be honest with you. Every single speech has a different theme, a different audience, different message. Different message. The theme is the overall the same, but it's. I mentioned it on the way here. It feels like 23 speeches, 23 wedding speeches. They never. It's just always that. Can't get it. It's always awkward. I'm trying to. Hence the fear of public speaking. So I recently, the last hour, I think I did 2 previous speeches on one was the value of purpose, one was the value of experience. And for a lot of the challenges that I faced and undertaken this event, I had taken rather unorthodox approaches. And this one was no exception. There's a quote that someone says, fears are educated into us and can, if we wish, be educated out. I think it's something I learned a lot as being a Toastmaster, is that trying to educate these fears out of us in order to best deliver messages to not only audiences, but anyone else we're interacting with on a regular basis. So I want to talk about, of course, the theme of the event, which is facing one's fears and facing one's challenges. And the message really is that rather unorthodox approach to fear, and that is that fear can be helpful. I think before I had undertaken this event, I would never have thought that fear would be helpful. But I found that it wasn't, and I'll explain why. The main fear in undertaking this event was obviously this public speaking, as you can see. And what I learned about fear is that it really can be a true barrier. And this event caused me to take a really hard look at how fear has held me back from a lot of the things that I really wanted to attempt in my life. And nothing like world records. We're talking about regular things. And there's one constant that's always been there, is that fear was always there. Fear is always going to be there. What I want to share with you today is that what I learned about how we can learn from fear. Some famous fearers, as I call them, of public speaking. And what Toastmasters taught me about fear. So fears are educated into us, and if we want, can be educated out. But one thing I learned is that fear can be regarded as a starting point. Identify the fear and really see it as a plateau rather than a barrier. Seeing it as a starting point, starting line rather than the end point. And it really makes a big difference when you look at it that way, because a lot of things happen, a lot of opportunities in advancing through that happen. The second thing I learned about fear is that fear can be a teacher, not an adversary as we commonly look at it as. Through fear we learn our boundaries, and then from there take steps to push those boundaries. Thirdly is that fear can lead you in all new directions. So building on the last point of showing you where your boundaries are, and pushing those boundaries can lead you in directions you never even thought of. For example, attempting a world record for most speeches in 24 hours. It's nothing that I actually would have ever thought about doing, even 2-3 years ago. And I reached out to a number of experts around the world for advice on what would you do in undertaking this event. What are some ways you would get around your fears to take on this challenge? And one of them was the author of a book called Speak with Courage. And it's from Martin McDermott. And it's an amazing book. I highly recommend it if you're looking at helping with your public speaking. Speak with Courage is a great book. And Martin was really helpful as well in helping out with this event. Well, among the many aspects of the book, one thing what he mentioned was that if you have a fear of public speaking, you're in good company. And he had a whole list of people that you may not realize would have a fear of public speaking. Oprah Winfrey, Harrison Ford, Barbara Streisand. That's a shocker. Abraham Lincoln, Elvis Presley. All had this and shared this fear of public speaking. And he said, they are just as human as you and I. And despite their fears, they flourished in overcoming that fear. So what has Toastmasters taught me about fear? Well, one thing, I'll give you a little history. I've taken on Toastmasters because I used to love public speaking as a kid. I loved it. As you get older, things change. You probably develop more insecurities and more barriers around the way you want to present it to people. Public speaking really just breaks those down. You're in front of an audience and you really there's nowhere to go but forward. And so I learned about Toastmasters. One of the first things I learned is that, correct me if I'm wrong, but audiences really do want you to do well. And that's a hard thing to overcome if you want to get speak in front of people, because the first thing you think of is, they're not going to care, or put myself out there, or embarrass myself. All valid fears. The other thing I learned was that, and not just with Toastmasters or public speaking, that is to not make it about the fear. A lot of times we want to do something, and it's the first thing you think of is, or that's fearful, is the fright that you have in undertaking that challenge. And I learned that public speaking is not about the fear, but it's rather the message you're trying to deliver. That's the focus, not the fear. The third thing I learned about public speaking through Toastmasters was to not give any room to fear. What I mean by that is you gotta prepare. Learn that over and over again, I'm fully speaking, without preparation. But with preparation, it fills all your time that you'd have thinking about how fearful it is with preparation. And we do these things all the time with whatever we do, but you probably don't realize it until you kind of put out of your box in something you're into in an area that you're unfamiliar with. So preparing, I learned a lot early on in Toastmasters very well. You can be confident about knowing what you want to talk about, then you get up there and you go blank. Right? I love when that happens. Not really. So before I go, I want to share a story of hope, and what I'm talking about is sharing hope, stories of hope in the Canadian Cancer Society relate to the message that I'm delivering today, because what we're here to do all at the end of the day is raise money for the Canadian Cancer Society. So I talked about that book, Martin's book, Speak with Confidence. And in that chapter that I referenced, he talks about how everyone gets scared. And he cites the poem, which I don't want to mispronounce the author's name, so I won't do that, but you'll know it when you hear, and that is, never send to know for whom the bell tolls, it tolls for thee. And I want to tell you a story about Donna, who was a former nurse. And for her, the bravery bell tolls. And I'll explain what that means in a minute. In 2014, a retired nurse was diagnosed with cancer. Now the caretaker became the patient. And before she retired, along with her team, had developed this bravery bell. And they took it from boxing matches. And the idea was to have a motivation for those who were battling cancer to, when they had successfully treated it, they'd go and ring the bravery bell to symbolize the end of the match, or the end of the boxing match. And as a patient surviving cancer, she got to ring the bravery bell. So I'm thinking about facing one's fears. I think it's important to focus on the little victories as we take steps to get around some challenges we may be faced with, no matter how big or small they may be. Make a point of incentivizing, like the bravery bell. To get past your fears and challenges and ring the bell. Fears can be educated into us, and if we want, can be educated out. I want to thank you so much for allowing me to share a little bit of what I learned about the value of fear in this event. Thank you for taking the time out of your days on this beautiful day. It's supposed to be spring. Have a wonderful afternoon, and thanks again for your support.